for those of you who are too cool or too cultured or too smart or too politically engaged to know what that image is, this is an image of former Rockefeller founder, mogul, entrepreneur, educator, dental model, Dame Dash.
Stop.
Too far? Okay, fine. Dame Dash on his recent appearance on The Breakfast Club. I'm a huge Dame Dash fan. I'm a huge Dame Dash supporter from old school. You know, I really believed in Dame and Jay and Biggs when they built Rockefeller Records. I love the story. If you're just tuning in, forgive me for having a call drop in my mouth. I'm very, very sick. I'm just trying to not cough on the mic. And over the course of the last 20 years, I've just watched, or really 30 years now, I've sort of watched all of them go in their separate directions, their separate lives. And I'm always rooting for everyone to be successful who deserves it. And when I saw Dame Dash on The Breakfast Club last night or yesterday, and I watched the memes and I watched the jokes and I watched the conversations and I listened to the quotes and I watched the entire interview twice. I got so many feelings about this, but mostly disappointment and sadness. And I wanted to know what you took. I don't know if you got to see the whole interview, but I'm sure you saw at least the social media outcry from it. What'd you make of it?
Ooh, this one's tough, and I haven't been a fan for years, so I'll say that quite transparently. Although there are moments where I think Dame had some, insights. He clearly was in the industry and meaningful to what we think about as way we think about hip hop looks very different without Dame's impact. And that's, I think, undeniable, right? But this also reminds me, sadly, rest in peace to Irv Gotti, but of like a lot of stuff he was doing in the last few years before his death with regards to like how he was talking about Ashanti and women. Like there are things that you're doing that make it very difficult to reckon with the legacy that you're trying to assert and affirm and remind people that you're a part of and what your impact has been. And then you become the laughing stock because you're saying such absurd and ridiculous things in such, it's mind blowing that it's almost, I'm like, are you this smart and dumb simultaneously? Like, culture, I'm like, how do you not know how this is going to read? And that lack of self-awareness, that ego that is so present with him, that in one way made him extraordinarily successful for many years, is the same thing that is tarnishing his own legacy in this moment. And his consistent kind of engagement with whatever he thinks manhood is and masculinity is has always been deeply troubling. But I think it was on display in a way for a lot of people, even folks who like him, to be like, dog, what are you talking about here? And what are you doing?
And that's the part that I think really took me out. Rolando said, right, that same ego put him in that tan suit. It was such a stunning thing. And again, when I say I was a fan of Dame Dash, I mean from way back, over the last decade in particular, I've become increasingly disappointed with his public persona, his public performance. I don't know Dame Dash, by the way. I was supposed to interview him at A3C conference maybe a decade ago now, and he couldn't make it because of some legal troubles. He wasn't allowed to leave California. I won't say what they were, but he announced that publicly, so I feel comfortable saying what he announced publicly. So never get an opportunity to meet Dame Dash, so I can't speak to him any personal interactions with him. But when I watched that Breakfast Club interview, it seemed to encapsulate so many of the things that people say about him publicly and privately. I was really disappointed. So there's a way that they were all in on a joke and they were kind of being silly and sarcastic and insulting each other, especially him and Dame Dash and Charlamagne. I thought there was some entertainment to it. It got a little too meta with the "you're not through me, you're interrupting me. No, you're interrupting me. Like that got a little like annoying and distracting. But when they got into the substance of the argument, Dame was on there, from what I could see, to set the record straight, to prove he wasn't broke. And I don't know if Dame Dash is broke or not. And I don't care. And also his idea of broke is very different than mine. Like I'm broke, like broke. Like when I say I'm broke, I mean like I ain't got two nickels to rub together. I mean like if you took all the money in the world and dumped it out, that'd be me. Like that's my conception of broke. You know, in billionaire talk and in millionaire talk, sometimes broke is what your assets are. It's you only got $1 million cash. I only got $5 million cash. I only got whatever, all those kinds of things. So it's a different kind of conversation that I don't feel qualified to even be a part of. So I won't speak to his money, but the idea of feeling the need to come on to defend the fact that you're not broke or to explain how you're not broke, if that is indeed his purpose for coming, to me was a little bit weird. And then the second thing, and this is what you're getting at with the masculinity thing, he kept calling Charlamagne a girl. One point, he's like, I'm not going to listen to you. You're a woman, right? And he caught himself. But in the other 15 times, he basically implied it. You know, he called him effeminate. He called him a man. He said, you're not the proper message of or representation of masculinity. Then by the end, all bets were off. He was just like, you're gay. You're gay. You're gay. You're gay. How old are we? What year is this? It felt disappointing to me. Utopian shitposter said the gays catching strays for what? And yeah, Henry Jackson's right. He called him a bald-headed girl. That's what Dame Dash called Charlamagne. Charlamagne, to his credit, took it. He laughed it off. He thought it was absurd, and he treated it as such. If you're Dame, why do you do this? You know, like, is it that you have such a warped idea of what the public thinks is okay, or do you just not care anymore?
I don't know what it is. I wish it were. It felt so immature. It felt so ego-driven, and that so much of who he views himself as a boss, who I don't work for people, you're not a man if you're this, is so tied up in such a toxic notion of personhood. Forget masculinity. Just like who I have to be and show up in this moment. I'm not broke. I'm this, I'm that, and you're not this. And he's putting himself and pitting himself against these other folks to somehow claim an identity that I'm like, this feels like a prison for you, my guy. Like, and when you do that slide into femphobia, right, and misogyny, that of course is that quick slide into homophobia that comes right then, blatant of this, that, you know, Charlamagne's response, from what I understand, is like, so what if I, like, it was like very, I mean,
yeah,
what does that even mean? Like, right?
Like, what is your issue with black gays? Like, why do you care?
Right, like, why do you care?
He's like, you're not a black man, you're gay. And he's like, wait, black men can't be gay? What are you talking about?
Gay, like this thing of, for it still being irreconcilable, it absolutely felt like a conversation that I would have with certain folks 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And the conversation would have been terrible then too. I'm not trying to make it seem as though that's not the case then too. Like, homophobia didn't suddenly become wrong, but it's like you are really out of step even with the platforms you're going on and speaking in the way that you do in an attempt to tell people I'm here because I'm not broke and I'm a real man, and this is the way that you're defining it. It was just such a crucial misstep, and he's had a lot of those in the last decade or so.
Well, one of the big things about it was the boss talk, right? That was 10 years ago. That's what made that episode classic, and what made this one an instant classic is also him again reasserting the fact that he is a boss. For him, working a 9 to 5, getting a paycheck from someone else, he said calling someone boss is like calling someone daddy. It's unmanly. That your children shouldn't be proud of you or proud that you have a boss, so that you go to work every day. He mocked them for having a 9 to 5.
I mean, could you imagine having worked for him at some point, and that's how he views you? That's
the thing I never understood about that. It's like, you know, having a boss makes you just whack, but you employ people. So I mean, that's a hell of a sales pitch. Come here so that I can be the very thing that you should resent. You know, be a loser, call me daddy, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's wild. So I never understood it, and I was hoping 10 years later he'd have a little different perspective on that. But he seems to have doubled down on it, and it seems to me at this moment, not just in like capitalism, but this moment in internet culture, where so much of LLC Twitter believes this. I feel like the same people who voted Trump The same men who voted Trump, particularly black men who voted Trump, the same people who are always talking about capital in a certain way are the ones online backing Dame, saying Dame was right, and that we just didn't listen to his lessons, and we should have been listening yesterday with our notepads out as he taught, which as he suggested, rather than criticizing him. What do you make of that, particularly this idea of the relationship between, or that Dame represents an idea and a thing?
I mean, it's a mix of arrogance and delusion for me. And I think that is, LLC, Twitter, X, or whatever, or these kind of conversations that happen, we're so tethered to capitalism and its promise and this idea that these folks who achieve something within that, and he's literally telling you he has a negative view of people who work for him, of workers, of laborers, of which most of us are, who are in these extractive dynamics with people who are like, I'm the boss and these other people call me dad. I mean, it's just harrowing to see then people say, that's a great thing. We should take lessons from that. That's how I want to move. That's how we continue to move in a way that suggests that we ain't getting free from capitalism until we have a robust critique of what those values are that you're saying should be.
And that's why Dame Dash to me is an interesting part of the conversation. The other piece, of course, is that he announced that he was the chairman of Revolt yesterday. Revolt, however, said he is not the chairman of Revolt. DeTavio sent out an email, a company-wide email saying, hey, just some updates. DeTavio Samuels, by the way, is the CEO of Revolt. He's also a good brother of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. I know your favorites. He sent out a note saying, hey, if there were changes in the company, I'd let you know. I'm responding to this because it's caused some unrest. Again, being clear, the news that Dame Dash was chairman, even temporary chairman for a month, sent the company in a tailspin. People did not want that to happen. Mm-hmm. But he said it's not true. It was never true. And the articles that say it were true fabricated quotes from me. So I don't know what the truth is or where the truth is. Again, I'm not saying Dame Dash was lying. I suspect Dame Dash was giving bad information. I don't think Dame Dash was lying. But regardless of what the truth is, that's pretty bad when you go on the biggest platform around for our culture saying that you're announcing that you're the chairman of Revolt and that you have a comeback story and that you won, that you were Michael Corleone and Godfather 2, and that you played weak and then killed all the families. This is his metaphor. And that Cameron, who he's been beefing with, is now an employee. He's Cameron's boss. He did all of that only for the network to say none of this is true. No. Yeah, I'm like, you mentioned Rose Nyland. I mean, is this one of those things where you think Bob Hope is your father? Is this one of those things where you pretend Bob Hope is your father until so that as kind of a coping mechanism? Are you delusional, or are you telling the truth, or are you lying? I mean, all these things are possible. Again, I don't want to pin anything negative on Dame Dash's jacket with certainty. I'm just saying this didn't look good. And so when you add all that together, the insults, the homophobia, what I thought just wasn't a great interview. It wasn't his best interview. Like on the first one, he was in complete control. And whether you disagree with Dave or not, he was rhetorically in control. This time it felt like Charlamagne was getting the upper hand on him at every turn. Dame Dash said, you need to, I think you're being paid to do this. And he's like, I think you need to get paid to do anything, to Dave. I mean, he was just hitting Dame with counters that were pretty funny. He called him Debt Dash. He said he started a new record label called Debt Jam. Again, I don't want to make fun of people who are poor or broke, but I think this is more about getting at Dame's ego. Yeah. And just rhetorically, it didn't look like Dame was doing a good job of holding it up. Then he was talking about potentially fighting Charlamagne. He was saying it as a hypothetical, like, if I were to do this, you wouldn't do anything about it. But that's still, in hood life, that's still a threat on some level. Or it's an assertion that I'm more masculine than you and that I can beat you up, right? Or I don't run from fights, you do, which is what he said. All of this is part of the mix. I don't know. I don't even know if I have a question as much as I just have an observation. I want to know what you think about, how do I make sense of all of this?
You don't. I mean, there's so much that's an unknown, right? Like, I don't know if he's Delulu. I don't know if he just got, as you said, the most generous read is that he got bad information. That's the most generous read we could have. I'm inclined not to be so generous, but I think that on the other end of that, it's delusion, it's arrogance, it's ego, it's trying to have this one up, trying to have these comebacks when you know somebody's getting better things. You know that in this moment, someone else is getting the best of you, someone else is getting the laughs, someone else is getting and they're getting the laughs at your expense. That you need a trump card and you pulled out a card that you thought you had, or a card you thought, I don't know, folks wouldn't check that deep into, or that publicly, maybe because of your history in the industry, that perhaps Ottavio might not have come out and said that in a public way. Like,
of course, right.
It's leaning on a lot of currency that you think you have, but that currency, again, is deeply rooted in you and in your ego. It's just like, bruh, you're Delulu, and I don't get it. And this interview was such a bad look for you. It doesn't make sense. It's sad for those who still are invested in you and what it is you think you're building right now. And it is not about making fun of folks who are broke or don't have money. That is so many folks. So like, that's damn near everybody in this moment. And there was a real way to talk about where he is, if he wanted to be honest about where he is, in a way that I think would have been relatable. And I think about, he has things to share about how he helped build an incredible legacy within the rap industry, within popular music more broadly. There's such a great story to tell there. And I feel like that's not the story that we're getting. What is self-aggrandizing, what is assuaging certain things that he feels publicly insecure about, are the things that we're getting responses from.
I agree with you again. Utopian shit poster, making fun of broke people was so played. Yeah, it is. It's not cool. Even
we all broke.
Right.
Who ain't broke? Like, what are we
talking about? Exactly. And when he says, I bet you my house bigger than yours, it's like, come on, man. And even Charlamagne left, like, come on, how old are you? Like,
how old are you?
You know, and again, I don't want to turn this into a bash Dame Dash thing, because I just mainly because I'm worried about his how healthy he is right now.
Yes, sure. And that's a care and an ethic of care that you extend to people that I'm deeply appreciative that you do, comrade. And I, on the other hand, was just like, this was ridiculous. And it is a pattern of ridiculousness. And I hope he has people, which is the thing is, when your ego leads that much, when you're this self-aggrandizing, it is rare that you have people around you who are going to hold you accountable and help you get to the resources you may need, if in fact you do need help. That makes it really challenging.
I think that's right. Antoine Foster said hustle culture is a lie. I think that Dame Dash in some ways exemplifies that, and I think that that's part of the danger. You know, I hope Dame Dash lives a long and healthy and happy life. But I think my bigger concern is less about Dame and more about all the people in our community and in our country who have bought into hustle culture, who have bought into the idea that you rise and you grind, and you know your value is measured by how much money you have or how much money even your family has, which was Dame's point, the family, not the individual, which I sort of appreciated, but the end goal to me was still problematic. You know, I'm concerned about the obsession with very narrow and dangerous and toxic even notions of masculinity. There's so many things that came out of that conversation that I found deeply disturbing. But there was one really good thing in the interview, and I don't know if you saw it, but his OG came up at the end and talked about his wife dying. His wife had died 5 months earlier, and he talked about what it meant to care for her and be by her side. Even at the worst moments. He talked about enduring love and sustaining love. And he sort of offered a different conception of manhood that was tied to loyalty and commitment to his partner, which I thought was sort of beautiful. Again, I'm sure we could have critiques of his stuff too at some level. I mean, anybody who hangs with Dame that tight probably merits critique as such. But what he was saying about, you know, being there until the day his wife died, and how he's carrying it now. And I noticed he was still wearing his wedding ring as well. Like there were just some things on it that stood in just such stark. It stood in such sharp contrast to the Dame interview. It's like the last 16 minutes were so much more interesting and beautiful to me than the first hour. That I thought it really, again, sort of put a spotlight on just how troublesome Dame's current position is. Anyway, one more question for you. Does this make, how do you think Jay-Z, what do you think Jay-Z does when he watches this interview? It ain't no way you're going to tell me Jay-Z don't watch this interview. So, and I don't know that Jay-Z didn't tell me that, but I'm just saying, like, if Jay-Z watches the interview, what does he say? What does he think?
I don't, you think he does? I mean,
yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm thinking he's somewhere with billionaires selling out, black children, but that's a whole other conversation too.
You're not a Hovenger. I forgot.
I think Jay pays him attention in about this much. Like, there's not a lot he could cash out on in terms of the attention that Jay has to pay him. I think Jay gets reports from folks of him of what this is. Oh, check this out, and has a laugh.
Yeah.
It goes back doing what other billionaires do. And that's a whole other conversation for another night when you are feeling much better. But I think he gets the tidbits. I think he gets the snippets that I get, since it's not something I think he'd be interested in consuming, to just further prove, like, every time this man comes out with an interview, he proves exactly why I made the moves that I made, and I moved like I did.
And that's what I wondered. Like, is he like, look, see, I try to, is he like, yo, look, Bleak, I told you? Or is it more like, or is it like, yo, B, look at this clown, and they're laughing? Or is it more like sadness, like, damn, that was my man?
I think it could be a mix of those. I don't think it has to be one or the other. I think it's less of column 3 of the sadness. I think Jay's always been a shrewd businessman. I think Jay has been about his coin for a long time, and about what his notion of loyalty is, and what kind of legacy he wants to have. And I think he was very clear about who Dame was showing up as at a certain point, and made a decision. And I think he's probably pretty happy with the decision that he made, and pretty happy to show those of him who doubted that decision, questioned that decision, are critical of that decision. There's column A and there was path A and path B, and path A has me at this table, and path B has me having to then come out here and like defend this guy saying these things. You know what I mean? It's just
yeah. I just always wonder when somebody's in your crew, and then y'all don't rock with each other for a long time, like, and things fall out, sort of how you carry that, even if you and the person aren't cool no more. And to be clear, wasn't calling Dame a clown. I just
no, but I think
I think that could be one way that Jay sees that behavior. Yeah, I actually think I think part of my sadness about this whole thing is I think Dame is actually cool. I think Dame is shrewd. I think Dame is smart. I think Dame is so talented. And I hate to see it playing out like this. That's what Cameron was saying. While him and Mace were also having a field day laughing about everything that's going down.